Hello and welcome back to JLXP, the night before the final day of Swiss. And I wanted to get on here and do a quick podcast to talk about the draw and a little bit about what we're going to see tomorrow and how at least I want to think about it. That draw kind of sucked. I was really looking forward this Worlds to seeing NA versus EU, and the fact that TL and FlyQuest play each other instead of playing G2 is a big downer. And then, even though it's been a year-long goal, I think, for both the FlyQuest and the TL teams to make it out of the Swiss stage, the fact that they're doing it against each other and the global community is going to say that it's a cheap way of making it to quarterfinals, it just kind of sucks. They didn't decide who they get to draw against, but at the same time, if you're not defeating LPL and LCK teams or even G2 on your way to the quarterfinals, it's going to feel cheap. So I legitimately think, even though that's going to be one of the penultimate matches between TL and FlyQuest, their fifth really meaningful series they've played against each other all year. They played each other in the double Olymp playoffs twice in the LCS. So spring and summer, they each knocked each other to the lower bracket, came all the way back up, and then played again in finals. Like, it is the LCS rivalry of the year, and now one of them gets to end the other team's season while the other team gets to continue playing at the World Championship. That in itself is very cool, but the things that it makes us miss out on make it not as cool, if that makes sense. And I do think that if TL or FlyQuest win their quarterfinal and make it to semis, people are actually going to kind of forget about how they got here. But that's probably not why you clicked on this video. You probably clicked on this video because I said that G2 was lucky. And it is clickbait. If you define luck as highest chance of making it to quarters, no, this is a very unlucky draw. But if you cheat the definition a bit and think that TL and Fly had an unlucky draw, which I think in many ways it is, even though it's their highest chance of getting out to quarterfinals, then G2 did get a lucky draw. Because listen, BLG is wounded. And G2 is actually the standard. They're actually the exception. So I have a wild stat about how good G2 actually is. So since 2023, MSI Worlds, G2's played 30 games against the LPL and the LCK. Okay? 30 games. The rest of the LEC and the LCS have played 56. So the rest is Fnatic, TL, FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, Energy, C9, BDS, and MDK. 56 games. They've won 5. Less than a 10% win rate. G2's played 30 games, remember? They've won 11. More than double of the rest of both leagues combined. That's how good they are, okay? 2-5 against BLG, 1-0 against DK, 1-5 against Gen G, 2-8 against T1, 3-0 against TES, 2-0 against Weibo, and 0-1 against HLE. So, not amazing, but with the context of those stats, that's pretty incredible. So, I wanted to talk a little bit more about it being a hard draw, the fact that G2 is really good, and the fact that BLG isn't in good form. So I'm going to start with a little bit of LPL history, and then I'll get back into how I think G2 can actually win. So even though last year was great for the LPL in Swiss, there's usually, year over year, one LPL team that comes to Worlds and falls flat on their face. And here's that history. In 2022, it was TES. They were the number 2 seed from the LPL, but in groups, they lost to DRX, Rogue, and GAM. That was 2 years ago. They didn't make it through. Year before that, FPX, 2-4. They lost twice to Dalmon, once to C9, once to Rogue. Year before that, LG, the number 4 seed, actually lost a couple of play-in games before squeezing their way into the group stage. They then lost to, what I have here is Gen G and Fnatic, and fell. I skipped 2021 as well. Even though FPX was the number 2 seed and didn't make it, LNG was the number 4 seed and didn't make it. That was actually a year where LPL only got half their teams through. The LNG team was in that cursed 3-3 group with TL, Genji, and Mad, and they went 3-3, 1-1 against everyone, and then lost the tiebreaker to Mad. So a couple of times there. Actually, the last 3 times, an LEC team has made it over an LPL team in that group. But then some of the more historic falls for the LPL was 2019 RNG. They were the number 2 seed. They lost to T1 and Fnatic in that year. That was in Europe. 2017, EDG was the number 1 seed from the LPL. They went 2-4. They lost twice to T1, once to C9, once to AHQ in that group, went 2-4, didn't make it through. Another number 1 seed that didn't make it through was a 2015 World Championship in Europe. LGD, the number 1 seed from the LPL, lost in the group with KT, Origin, and TSM. They lost to all those teams, and they went home before quarters. So there's a history of some LPL teams going to Worlds, falling flat on their face. Not like the LCK, where it's only happened since 2014 twice. Last year with DRX and 2018 with KSV, which was the Genji Samsung team, just a quick renaming. That was Core JJ's last year in Korea. But on top of that, BLG has not looked good. They came in with an absolutely atrocious meta read. So I have some highlights from the few games they've played in Swiss stage so far. So their first game was against MDK, and they banned Nidalee, Jinx, and Skarner as the blue side team. So that was a Jinx ban. They've been blue side banning Skarner the whole time. And then Yone fell through the entire draft. Didn't get picked or banned, just fell through the whole draft. Then in their upset loss to LNG, they banned Kindred. LNG got Yone as third pick after LNG had already locked in Rumble and Nocturne. So they just gave over like the strongest top side at Worlds for free. Lost that game. And then even in their PSG series, they continued to blue side ban Skarner. And yes, they 2-0'd, but they were 6.8 thousand gold down 27 minutes into game 1 before they made that comeback. Against PSG, who I put about or just below the level of a LCS or LEC team. And that was shown. I think they were like 9-10 this year against LEC and LCS teams combined. I know this is a lot of overgeneralization, but I'm trying to make a quick video. But yeah, PSG pretty much on par with a non-G2 level LEC or LCS team. And they almost lost to them. Definitely should have lost to them in game 1. BLG's also had a mid-Worlds sub. They have changed junglers mid-tournament. That's a pretty big red flag, if you ask me. So they don't run a 6-man roster. Like, they lost a series to JDG. They put in Wei. They did well with him in the rest of summer. Shun played at MSI. And now they have Shun in again. So, yeah, it could be fine. But I think it would be better if they weren't changing junglers mid-tournament. So this idea that BLG is this shark that's just still the very best team in the LPL just isn't true. They're a completely broken team at the moment. They could reform. They could get it together. They could smash. They could actually still win Worlds. But there is so much variance with how BLG could actually perform. Now let's go over to G2. I talked a bit about this when I did my last G2 video after they 3-0 TES at MSI. And I think there are prerequisites that G2 have to hit if they want to reach the highs that they've reached in the past. And I think, to oversimplify, they need to have highly prepared level 1s. They need to have some sauce in champion select. And they need to continue to play macro at a world-class level. And listen, they've actually had a little bit of sauce already. They just didn't do it in the T1 series. So on day 1, when they almost beat HLE, that was a close game, they did Lilia jungle, and they had a Poppy flex pick. They ended up putting Poppy top lane. For Broken Blade, they had Yone mid. It was actually a really cohesive team comp, and that uncertainty of the flex pick Poppy gave them some really nice stuff in draft. Against Weibo in their win, they had a Galio top counter pick into Rumble. Broken Blade got a solo kill at level 3. Like, the sauce is there, and it worked. But as an example of like how they don't have enough of it currently, and I really hope that they reach back and really pull it out against BLG, is I was looking back at MSI, and when they had 3-0'd TES, they had been the only ones to have played Leona, Lilia, Kog'Maw, Belveth, Yasuo, and Jinx. BB also had 2 wins on Zac. Everyone else had 1 and 7 losses. And they were the only ones to have won with Rek'Sai. They had like 8 pocket picks. It was insane. They need to actually have that level, because if you go all the way back to 2019, they were the flex pick gods. I just checked at MSI alone. No, that can't be right. I have written down in MSI alone, they flex picked Nico, Aurelia, Vladimir, Ryze, Morgana, and they played Pyke top, Nico, and Syndra bot. I need to actually double check this right now, because that could just be across summer split. But if they did that just at MSI, that would be absolutely crazy. I'm just going to go really quickly on Games of Legends. Go to Season 9. Never check things on live podcast. So yeah, in 18 games. No, that stat's absolutely correct. Yeah, they played 18 games at MSI, and they successfully flexed that many picks. I checked the stat myself. I still didn't believe it. They flexed Nico, Aurelia, Vladimir, Ryze, Morgana in the same tournament, played Pyke top 3 times, and also played Nico and Syndra bot. And that's when they created peak League of Legends. So, in closing, G2 need to have prepared level 1s, they need to have the sauce and champion select, and they need to continue to have world-class macro. They have, by far, been the best LEC or LCS team across the last 2 years. It's not even close. They have the best chance of anyone to beat BLG. BLG is a broken team, and they can absolutely win. And I think the extra importance here that could be a little bit sad if they lose is I don't see how this team stays together if they fall short here. Because they found so much success. They feel like they've done everything. They feel like they've scaled as high as they can scale. They won all 4 splits, man. Winter, spring, summer, and season finals. It's insane. But if for 2 years in a row, they fail to make it out of Swiss stage, and they lose both times to BLG, it is unlucky and a little bit sad. But if they win, it's going to be an incredibly meaningful moment. And it just makes tomorrow incredibly nerve-wracking. As unlucky as it is, as bad as it feels to beat BLG, to draw BLG, if they come together and play great, they can win. If they come together and play normal and BLG plays like trash, they're also going to win. So, tomorrow's going to mean a lot. See you there.